Hello friends, we are moving into the 9th week of our course. We have chosen a novel to discuss. The novel that we have chosen is Aravind Adiga's The White Tiger. The first lecture is an introduction to Aravind Adiga's The White Tiger. Let's see the objectives, understand Indian English novel, learn about Man Booker Prize novels, Adiga's life and writings. Let's see the literary influences on Adiga, understand the critics and defenders of the novel The White Tiger. Let's also see the dedication of the novel. Then let's understand the characters and setting and appreciate the genre and structure of the novel. Finally, summarize our discussion. Here are the objectives. To discuss the Indian novel with reference to the novel in English as a background to Adiga. To examine the phenomenon of upward mobility for the poor in India in novels like Q&A and The White Tiger. We have to remember The White Tiger is a famous novel for one reason, that is, it deals with social upward mobility. To introduce Aravind Adiga, his life and his writings. To trace the literary influences on Aravind Adiga. Then to explore Adiga's views on the novelist's responsibility to society. Remember, the novel always deals with certain social problems and the writers have some responsibility to the society, which he discusses in many of his interviews. Finally, to outline the characters, the setting and the structure of the novel The White Tiger. Let's begin with the Indian novel. We have to understand that the novel is a colonial phenomenon, though storytelling has been a part of our great tradition. Initially, Anglo-Indians wrote about India in English. Later on, Indians also started writing in their own mother tongue. For example, we have famous writers in Marathi, Bengali, Telugu, Hindi, Tamil, Malayalam and Kannada. We have some examples for all these languages. In Marathi, we have Baba Padamji's Yamuna Paryatan, which was published in 1857. Then in Bengali, we have Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's novel Durgesh Nandini, which was published in 1865. Then we have a novel in Telugu by N. Gopalakrishna Setti called Sri Rangaraja Charitra, which was published in 1867. Then in Hindi, we have Srinivas Das's novel Priksha Guru, published in 1882. In Tamil, we have a novelist called Vedanayagam Pillai who wrote Pratapa Mudaliyar Charitram in 1879. In Malayalam, we have Appu Nedungadi's novel Kundalata, which was published in 1887. And in Kannada, we have Gulwadi Venkata Rao's novel Indrabai, published in 1899. These are some representative novels in Indian languages. In Indian English, we have novels in three different periods. Here is the pre-independent Indian novel. We have three great novelists, Mulkraj Anand, R.K. Narayan and Raja Rao. Mulkraj Anand is known for Untouchable and Coolie. R.K. Narayan is known for Swami and Friends and The English Teacher. He has written some other novels. Mulkraj Anand also has written some other novels which will come under the second period. Next we have Raja Rao, who published Kantapura in 1938. We also have another novelist called Bhavani Bhattacharya, who came out with So Many Hungers in 1947, just at the time of independence. In the second category of the post-independent Indian novel, we have many authors. Mulkraj Anand has a few novels like Morning Face and Confessions of a Lover. Similarly, R.K. Narayan has some well-known novels like Waiting for the Mahatma and The Guide. Even Raja Rao has very important novels like The Serpent and the Rope and Cat and Shakespeare. These deal with philosophical themes. Then again we have Bhavani Bhattacharya's novel Shadow from Ladakh. Then we have Khushwant Singh's novel Train to Pakistan, a memorable novel on India and Pakistan division. We have Nayanthara Sahgal's novel Storm in Chandigarh, and we have Anita Desai's novel Cry the Peacock. That means more and more of women also enter into the field of writing, and they have different kinds of themes to add to Indian novel in English. Now we come to one more division of Indian English novel, that is the Indian English novel after 1980. Some changes happened, particularly the arrival of Penguin publishers in India created a conducive atmosphere for the novel in English. We have many novelists like Salman Rushdie, Vikram Seth, Amitav Ghosh, Shashi Deshpande, Upamanyu Chatterjee, Manju Kapoor, Geeta Hariharan, Arundhati Roy. These novelists have written many novels, but we have just some examples for each of them. Salman Rushdie is known for his novel Midnight Children, Vikram Seth for his novel Golden Gate, Amitav Ghosh for his novel The Shadow Lines, Shashi Deshpande for her novel That Long Silence. Upamanyu Chatterjee is known for his novel English August. Manju Kapoor is well known for her novel Difficult Daughters, dealing with 3 generations of daughters. Geeta Hariharan has a novel called Thousand Faces of Night. Then we have Arundhati Roy's novel The God of Small Things. All these novels added value to Indian English novel in different ways. Another most recent set of novelists we have in Chetan Bhagat, Vikas Swarup, Aravind Adiga and Amesh Tripathi. These are recent young generation of writers. The Indian English novel after 1990 breaks new grounds with the introduction of liberalization in India. Chetan Bhagat has many novels, some of them are 5 Point Someone, One Night at the Call Center, The 3 Mistakes of My Life. Swarup has his novel Q&A, and we have the film Slumdog Millionaire based on this novel. We have Aravind Adiga's novel The White Tiger. Next we have Last Man in Tower and also Selection Day. Then we have another novelist, Amesh Tripathi, who is known for many mythological novels including The Immortals of Meluha, The Secret of the Nagas and The Oath of the Vaiputras. So more and more novels are coming up in the Indian English fiction. One of the interesting things about Indian novel in English is we have quite a few novelists who have won the Man Booker Prize. That is something remarkable. This prize was started in 1969. Many writers of Indian origin and Indian born writers have received this prize. First is V.S. Naipaul for his In a Free State. He got this prize in 1971. He is actually a writer of Indian origin. He was not born in India, whereas the rest of the writers are Indian born writers. They were born in India, though they may have moved to other countries like Salman Rushdie. He got this Man Booker Prize for Midnight Children in 1981. Then later on it was considered to be the Booker of Bookers in 1994. Again there was another category called the Best of the Booker. This was declared for Midnight Children. Then we have some novelists like Arundhati Roy, Kiran Desai and Aravind Adiga who have received Man Booker prizes for their novels like The God of Small Things, The Inheritance of Laws and The White Tiger. The novel itself has some significance for us to understand how the rest of the world understands India and Indian English fiction. Now we come to Aravind Adiga's life. Aravind Adiga belongs to Indian English fiction and also he belongs to the category of Man Booker Award winners. His parents were Dr. K. Madhava Adiga and Usha Adiga. His paternal grandfather was K. Surya Narayana Adiga, who was the chairman of Karnataka Bank. Similarly, his maternal grandfather U. Rama Rao was a famous medical doctor and politically influential person in Chennai in those days. His own brother Anand Adiga was known as an academic achiever. However, Adiga's family migrated to Sydney after his mother's death, but Adiga, after his education, returned to India in 2003 to look for his job and also to write his novels. Adiga had a sterling education from Canara High School, St. Aloysius High School in Mangalore, India, then James Roos Agricultural High School in Sydney, then from Columbia College, New York, and also he had education in Magdalene College at Oxford University. He has a distinguished education for himself, and this kind of international education has helped him to come out with good novels. Adiga has a checkered career. He started as a financial journalist as he worked for the Financial Times. He also wrote for the magazine Money. Later he reviewed a novel, Peter Carey's Oscar and Lucinda, in 1988. He became the South Asia correspondent for Time magazine for 3 years until 2006. He first published his book The White Tiger in 2008 and won this Man Booker Award. However, the first written book was Between the Assassinations, that was also published in 2008. He received the Booker Prize in 2008 at the age of 35. He is considered to be one of the youngest writers to have received the Man Booker Prize. He has written a few novels like The White Tiger. It is a driver's novel as it deals with the driver Balram. Next is Between the Assassinations, published in the same year 2008. It is a collection of linked stories set in Kittur from 1984 to 1991, that is in Mangalore. His next novel is Last Man in Tower, which is an apartment residence novel. We have many apartments, people live there, and there are many difficulties, problems, and this novel deals with such a problem in Bombay, that is Mumbai. His next novel is Selection Day, which is called a sports novel as it deals with cricket. Next we have a recent novel, Amnesty, which is about an immigrant, so it is called an immigrant's novel. Adiga was influenced by many great writers from different countries. From Europe, that is specifically from French literature, we have Gustave Flaubert and Honoré de Balzac. From British literature, we have Charles Dickens and George Bernard Shaw. They have influenced Adiga tremendously. Similarly, we have some writers from America influencing Adiga powerfully. We have some specific novels here. Richard Wright's novel Native Son, Ralph Ellison's novel Invisible Man, James Baldwin's two writings, The Fire Next Time and No Name in the Street, all of them have influenced Adiga very powerfully. In the context of India, we have Khushwant Singh and M.J. Akbar, who have influenced Aravind Adiga positively. Aravind Adiga in his interview has said why he writes about India, what he writes about India. He says, well, this is the reality for a lot of Indian people, and it is important that it gets written about rather than just hearing about the 5% of people in my country who are doing well. In somewhere like Bihar, there will be no doctors in the hospital. In northern India, politics is so corrupt that it makes a mockery of democracy. This is a country where the poor fear tuberculosis, which kills 1,000 Indians a day. But people like me, middle class people with access to health services that are probably better than England's, don't fear it at all. It is an unglamorous disease, like so much of the things that the poor of India endure. In India, poor people fear tuberculosis, whereas rich people don't have to worry about it at all because they have better health facilities in India than some people who can get in England. So Aravind Adiga, who thought about India and the people, has written a novel which touches the heart of most of Indians. Aravind Adiga believes that writing is a kind of self-examination. A writer, when he writes about the country, examines himself and his relationship with the country and also the fate of the country. So he says to Stuart Jeffries in his interview, at a time when India is going through great changes and with China is likely to inherit the world from the West, it is important that writers like me, that is Adiga, try to highlight the brutal injustices of society. The novel art form always has something to do with individual and society, particularly whatever injustices that may happen in the society. So he talks about the brutal injustices of society. That's what writers like Flaubert, Balzac, Dickens, remember these are the writers who influenced Adiga, did in the 19th century, and as a result England and France are better societies. If England and France could become better societies by the writings of Flaubert, Balzac and Dickens, Aravind Adiga believes that India can become a better society with his writing or with similar writings. That is what I am trying to do. It is not an attack on the country, it is about the greater process of self-examination. Who we are, what we are, where we are, what we are doing, we have to ask ourselves. Otherwise, how will we progress? There are some critics who have said so many things about their White Tiger because it became a successful novel. It won the Man Booker Prize. Critics have their own take on the novel. For example, Somak Ghoshal, an Indian art critic, says this is a novel for the Western readers, not for Indians, but I as an Indian found it very interesting and useful. K.R. Usha, an Indian novelist, says who is the reader of this novel? It can be Western, it can be Indian, it can be anybody. It touches the heart of people if you are caring about justice. Lily Want, a professor that is an academic, says Adiga turns out to be Eurocentric. The novel may look like Eurocentric, but it is actually Indocentric. It deals with Indians for the Indians. Amrit Dhillon says Adiga reminds us of V.S. Naipaul denigrating India as an area of darkness. The novel deals with the major themes of light and darkness, or dark India and light India. That is why we have such an opinion. Of course, V.S. Naipaul wrote a novel called An Area of Darkness. There he presented India negatively. It does not mean that every writer would do the same. When we talk about the ills of the society, it does not mean that we are projecting a negative picture of the society. We want our society to become better and better. Sanjay Subramanian, a professor of history, another academic, says Adiga does not have access to Balram's voice. The voice of the poor man, Balram, is not the voice of Adiga. Adiga cannot really understand the poor man's voice. That is what Sanjay Subramanian says. Stuart Jeffries, the critic who took the interview with Adiga, he is a feature writer for the Guardian. He says Adiga is a literary tourist ventriloquizing others. Somehow the success of Adiga irritated some kinds of people, and so they have their own views like these. There are many defenders of the novel The White Tiger. Michael Portillo, who was the chair of the Booker Prize judging committee, said The White Tiger is an intensely original novel. He calls it a perfect novel. Ted Giowa, a reviewer for the New Canon, says this novel is a dialogue with the soul of India. One can appreciate it only when one reads it with the interest as an Indian. USA Today reviewer said The White Tiger is an amazing and angry novel about injustice and power. Similarly, Sudeep Paul of Indian Express says The White Tiger is an intelligent and ruthless portrait of the India in the making, shining or rising but always sinking. We call ourselves a shining country, a rising country, but then somewhere we are sinking. That we have to be aware of. The writers like Aravind Adiga, novelists, short story writers, poets, they talk about certain negative aspects which we have to pay attention to if we want our country to become really a great country. Neil Mukherjee calls it blazingly savage and brilliant. No doubt it is a brilliant novel. Betty Joseph, a critic, calls it an allegory of neoliberalism. Neoliberal policies have affected our country, and so Joseph calls it an allegory of neoliberalism. This novel has been dedicated to Ramen Bharani by Aravind Adiga. This Ramen Bharani is an Iranian American classmate of Aravind Adiga at Columbia University. Bharani invited Adiga to watch best movies including The Taxi Driver. I have highlighted Taxi Driver because the novel The White Tiger deals with a taxi driver actually. Bharani was a film director and a professor of film studies at Columbia University. He made internationally recognized movies like Man Pushcart and 99 Homes. He was a great motivator for Adiga for several years. He would always ask, when is your novel coming to be published? He would always ask about the welfare of Adiga. Interestingly, Ramen Bharani directed an adaptation of Adiga's The White Tiger in 2021. this has come out in a film form and anyone can watch it and enjoy it. It is available on Netflix. We have a number of characters in the novel. So we have a classification of characters here from Balram to the assistant commissioner. Let's just read them. We will look at some of these characters in one lecture on character and characterization. Balram, Ashok, Pinky Madam, Vikram Halwai, Krishna, the school inspector, the driving instructor for Balram, Vitiligo Lips, the booksellers, Dharam, Mr. Wen Jiabo, the Chinese premier, also plays some important role in the novel. The stork, the mongoose, the wild boar, the buffalo, the raven, these are some landlords. Granny, Kishan, Vijay, the great socialist is a political leader. Ramanathan, Mukeshan are bureaucrats, fixers. The assistant commissioner is a police official. All these characters appear in the novel. They have some role to play and to shape the life of Balram Halwai, the protagonist of the novel. The novel is set in Bangalore, that is called the Light India, that is where some kind of justice, some kind of development has taken place. But the novel originates in Lakshmangarh near Gaya in Bihar, the land of darkness. South is called the land of light and north is called the land of darkness. Dhanbad is also in the north in Jharkhand state, that is also part of the land of darkness. Again, when it comes to Gurgaon, it becomes a land of light. Within Delhi, old Delhi is the land of darkness, but New Delhi is the land of light. And Hyderabad also is mentioned, that is part of South India, so it becomes part of light. And again it comes back to Bangalore, electronic city phase 1, that is where Balram operates his taxi service. The novel The White Tiger has many kinds of associations. This is an epistolary novel because it is written in the form of letters, particularly emails. This is a novel of social mobility because Balram Halwai moves from a poor family in North India and he becomes a rich man in South India. This novel is also called a condition of India novel as it deals with the exact social, political, economic condition of our country. It is also called a coming of age novel because the young boy Balram Halwai, from his childhood he grows up. That's why again we have another name, a Bildungsroman. A character grows through the novel. It is almost something like an autobiography of Balram Halwai. This novel is also a subaltern novel because it deals with the most downtrodden person, that is Balram Halwai. Before he becomes a taxi driver, before he becomes a taxi service owner in Bangalore, he is actually a voiceless person. It is a satirical novel because it shows or it exposes certain social evils in our society. It is also a realistic novel because it presents some slices of life from different parts of the country, from North India, from Delhi, from Bangalore. It is also a naturalistic novel because it explores the psychological motives, the economic motives of certain characters. There is corruption in our society. Why do some people indulge in corruption? How do they indulge in corruption? How this corruption conditions certain people to behave in certain ways? We have some glimpses of all those things in the novel. It is also a political novel because it deals with politics, or politicians who get votes from people, and certain scenes describe the electoral process in our country. Further, it is a post-colonial novel because of this colonial setup in our country and the post-colonial experience that we have now, and also in the neo-liberalized world we have this neo-colonial experience, and Balram Halwai has all these complexities, and so this novel is called both a post-colonial novel and a neo-colonial novel, or even a neo-liberalist novel. So the form of the novel can be considered in many ways, so the genre of the novel is very complex. The novel has a structure of a series of 7 letters, actually emails, written over 7 nights. These are written to the Chinese premier Wen Jiabo. Initially, it appears to be a formal letter, formal missive, but then gradually the writing becomes informal and more like a confessional story. At the end, it appears to be one long letter with breaks in between. Essentially, the White Tiger is a story of how Balram Halwai freed himself from darkness and came to light to live a life that he wants to live. To give a summary of the presentation that we have had so far, we saw the objectives of discussing Aravind Adiga's novel The White Tiger. As a prelude, we looked at Indian novel, Indian English novel. We also saw Man Booker Prize winning novels. Then we moved on to present the life and writings of Aravind Adiga. We saw the literary influences of Flaubert, Balzac, Dickens, George Bernard Shaw, Ralph Ellison, James Baldwin, Richard Wright on Aravind Adiga. We saw the both camps attacking and defending the novel The White Tiger. Interestingly, we found that the novel is dedicated to a filmmaker, Ramen Bharani. We saw the list of characters and the setting in different parts of the country. We also examined the form of the novel and the structure of the novel. We have a quotation from Aravind Adiga here. This appears in the novel The White Tiger. I was looking for the key for years, but the door was always open. That is the beauty of our life. Life is open, life is abundant. Keep your eyes open, you can see. If you close your eyes, you can't see. That's what Balram Halwai found when he opened his eyes to the ways of people growing up, becoming better and better in their life. He also started understanding life. He wanted to live that kind of life. So people who want to move from one level of life to another level of life will find this novel very interesting and useful, though one particular criticism cannot easily be dismissed. That is, there are certain ethical questions in the novel which, as author Aravind Adiga has always addressed, but then it is a difficult choice. How does one forgive Balram Halwai for his crime? That is something which we cannot easily dismiss. We have some references here. You can refer to these references and understand more about Aravind Adiga and his novel The White Tiger. Thank you.